V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos, la'asos ha-Shabbos, ha'deirosom, beris olam. Here we have, once again, a reference to the uniqueness and the Kedusha of Shabbos, even though we had it before so many times. We had it already in Beshalach, both at Morah and at the Mon, Vayishbos ha'yom b'yom hashvi, and we had it in the Aseres HaDibros, Zochos Yom HaShabbos L'Kadsho, and we had it in Parshas Mishpatim, a reference to Shabbos, and here once again in Ki-Tissa, a reference to the uniqueness of Shabbos. What is being added and explained here in Ki-Tissa? There's some very interesting features. First of all, for the first time, Shabbos is referred to not just as a mitzvah, but as a brit. That Shabbos is a unbreakable covenant between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the Jewish people, and a sign that Klal Yisrael accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the Boirei Olam, as the creator of the world, that the world didn't create itself, nor did it exist forever, but it came into being as a result of the Rotzon Hashem. It's an interesting thing, incidentally, that, of course, in measurement of time, mankind has used the day and night to measure time, has used the monthly cycle of the moon and the annual cycle of the sun, but the 7-day cycle has got nothing to do with nature at all. There's nothing in nature which gives us the 7-day cycle. That is only completely connected to the idea of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the Borei Olam, that actually nature itself had its origin beyond the natural world. It came into existence by the Borei Olam. And in that sense, Shabbos is not just another one of the mitzvahs, but it is the foundation of the whole of Torah mitzvahs. It is the covenant with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so much so that Chazal say that someone who abandons Shabbos is abandoning their Jewish identity. And therefore the Kedusha of Shabbos is sacrosanct at a level beyond anything else in the Torah. Also, we find for the first time, B'yom Hashvi Shabbos Vayinofash. So this word Vayinofash has got lots of many very fascinating interpretations, but the Gemara in Beitzah, Daf Tesai in Beitzah, says that Vayinofash is a reference to the idea that a person who enters into the world of Shabbos observance, of Shmiras HaShabbos, and enters into the mindset and the Kedusha of Shabbos, such a person gains a Neshama Yesera. The concept of a Neshama Yesera meaning in some way the Neshama of a person is turbocharged on Shabbos, is made to be ultra active and sensitive to spiritual values and spiritual growth, and that is the Vayinofash, the Neshama Yesera of Shabbos. Let's speak a little bit about what we find also in this week's Parsha about Shabbos and that particular Neshama Yesera, which is the uniqueness of this Parsha. So we find another very interesting expression. The Pasuk says, Ach es Shabsosai Tishmoru. A few psukim before B'Shamru, Ach es Shabsosai Tishmoru, where the Torah refers to the Shabbos in the plural. The Pasuk could have said, Ach es HaShabbos Tishmoru. Why Shabtotai? Why my Shabbatot? What is it in the plural? About this plurality here in Ki-Tissa of Shabbos, a lot has been written, but I want to just touch on a couple of very fascinating features of that. The first one is that we find, and this is grammatically, that the word Shabbos is one of those few words in the Lashon HaKodesh, in biblical Hebrew, which is sometimes given a masculine gender and sometimes a feminine gender. Most nouns in Lashon HaKodesh are either masculine or feminine, but Shabbos can be one or the other. This is a point which is mentioned in Tosfos, in Ksuvos Daf Hey, and is mentioned by all the Mefarshim to try and understand what is the significance of that. But the Orach Chaim HaKadosh takes this duality in the grammar of the word Shabbos to express two very different, interesting dimensions of Shabbos, which are worth reflecting on. He says that actually Shabbos has these two very different dimensions. In the one sense, Shabbos is the end of the week. It's the day which, in a sense, completes the whole week, having gone through the 7 days of work, then Shabbos in some way absorbs all the kedusha of the week, everything and anything that you've done in the week which has any spiritual value, a mitzvah or a tefillah or a Talmud Torah or any type of chesed that you've done, that in some way is taken on Shabbos and is absorbed into one's neshama. And that's what the Orach Chaim HaKadosh understands partly as meaning the neshama yasera, that the neshama grows on Shabbos. Because having done any and all the mitzvahs that we've done during the week, the neshama in that sense is enriched and has developed on account of all those mitzvahs, and Shabbos has the segula, has the ability to absorb all that kedusha. But that's only half the story, says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh. That actually Shabbos is indeed has a dual spiritual energy. One is to absorb the past, but the other one is Kihi Mekoyer HaBracha. Shabbos is the origin of a bracha for the forthcoming week. And in that sense, Shabbos is not only the Yom HaShvi'i, the 7th day of the week, it's also the first day of the week. And interestingly, of course, we speak about the Shabbos as being the 7th day of the week from the point of view of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Kisheishis Yomim Osa Hashem Es HaShemayim Ves Oretz, of Yom HaShvi Shabbos Vayinofash, that he rests on the 7th day. But actually, from the point of view of mankind, who was born on Friday, actually the first new day was Shabbos. Shabbos is the beginning of life, as well as being the completion of life. Shabbos has this unique dimension to it, as connecting the origins to the final destiny. The Shabbos is the destiny of the week, and it's the origin of the new week. And therefore, not only does it absorb everything from the past into the neshama, but also it is the springboard for all the kedusha that's going to happen in the forthcoming week. Anything that you and I are going to do in the forthcoming week, which has a special aspect of sanctity and kedusha to it, has its sheresh, has its origin in the previous Shabbos. And this we find in the writings, for example, of Tzadok HaKohen speaks about this as the origin of lots of minhagim that we have, particularly Bnei Ashkenaz have these minhagim. That, for example, we have the minhag of the ofruf, the Shabbos before the chuppah. Why should the Shabbos before the chuppah have a special kedusha to it, have a special significance? So he says it's for this reason, because the chuppah during the course of the forthcoming week has got such importance that we want to already acknowledge the fact that its shoresh is in the previous Shabbos. Similarly, a Shalom Zocha is the Shabbos before the Bris Milah. Since you're going to have the Bris Milah in the forthcoming week, the previous Shabbos already contains within it that sheresh. Similarly, says Tzadok HaKohen, both Shabbos HaGodel and Shabbos Shuvah are the Shabbos before Shabbos HaGodel, before Pesach, before Leil Seder, and Shabbos Shuvah before Yom Kippur, because you're going to have in the forthcoming week these spiritually high points, either of Leil Seder or of Yom Kippur. It must be the case that the preceding Shabbos is Kihi Mekoyer HaBracha, as we say in L'Chododi. And therefore Shabbos is the source and the root of the future kedusha. So here we have within Shabbos, that's the idea of Shabbosai. That's the idea of the dual nature of Shabbos, that it both absorbs the kedusha of the past week and it generates the kedusha for the future week. Says the Orach Chaim HaKadosh, this is actually connected to the dual gender of Shabbos. That in some way Shabbos is also the nekeva, has the feminine gender, which absorbs and nurtures and remembers everything of the past, right? Women have a tendency greater to remember the past than men have, and the zochar, the male dimension of Shabbos is planning the future, is the energy for future ideas, for future activities, and that is the kedusha of the Makoyer HaBracha. And that, in a sense, that combination makes for the completion of Shabbos, and that is the Shabsosai. And these are the dual ways in which we understand Shabbos. And indeed, the minhag in many Sidurim will be that actually on Friday night we say V'yonuchu vo. We refer to the Shabbos in the feminine, and Shabbos morning V'yonuchu voi. Says the Rotzadok HaKohen that in actual fact the feminine aspect of Shabbos, which absorbs the Kedusha of the previous week, that is the Friday night part of Shabbos. Whereas the Shabbos morning part of Shabbos is the Kedusha for the forthcoming week. And this gives us a bit more of an understanding, maybe a little bit of a grasp of what is the uniqueness of the Neshama Yesera of Shabbos, that it gives us every week. We can consolidate the past and we can project it into our future spiritual growth of mitzvahs, of emunah, of chesed, of Yiras Shamayim. All that is grounded in the previous Shabbos. What's interesting, so that's one aspect of Shabbos and the Vayinofash, the Neshama Yesera in this week's Parsha. I'd like to connect that also with something which is mentioned here in the Kliyaka and in other Mefarshim, that it's interesting to note that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe Rabbeinu about the Shabbos in the conclusion of the Maaseh HaMishkan. In other words, Truma, Tetzaveh, Ki-Tissa. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu about all the details of the Mishkan, how to make it and how to do it. And then at the very, very end, in Ki-Tissa, he says, Ach es Shabsosai Tishmeru. As Rashi says, even though you're going to be Zerizim, you're going to be very enthusiastic about building the Mishkan, don't forget Shabbos. And when it comes Shabbos, it's tools down. We stop all the malachas. In fact, we learn all the Yisuri malachas of Shabbos from the Mishkan, because it says, Achas Shabsosai Tishmeru, these are the malachas you can't do on Shabbos. What's interesting is, if you have a look in Vayakel is when Moshe Rabbeinu starts giving the whole account of the Mishkan to Klal Yisrael. He starts with Shabbos. Vayakel Moshe's Kladas Bnei Yisrael, and what does he say? You can work for 6 days and rest on the seventh. So why is it that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he wants to give over the Mishkan, he starts with Shabbos, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he tells Moshe Rabbeinu the Mishkan, he ends with Shabbos? Why does Moshe Rabbeinu switch the order? Now, there are lots of very fascinating aspects to this, but I just want to mention one of the ideas we find in the Kli Yakar, that he says this is a relationship that we have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have the relationship that we want to emphasize the praise of the Rebbeinu Shalom. That's the priority for us. But he, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, wants to emphasize the praise and the uniqueness and the beauty of Klal Yisrael. So in some sense, this is what the Marsha actually says, that this is the real meaning of Anila Doidi V'Doidi Li. That pasuk in Shir HaShirim means that we are trying always to find ways to express the Shevach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shira, Shvacha, Halal, Zimra, Ozim, Shalah, all the different ways to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but he wants to praise us. The origin of this, of course, is a Gemara, a Midrashic Gemara in Brachos Tavav, which speaks about the Kaviyachol, metaphorically, the Tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Gemara says, what is written in the Tefillin of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? What it means, of course, is, were HaKadosh Baruch Hu to wear Tefillin, what would he write in the Tefillin? And the Gemara concludes, since in our Tefillin is written, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the uniqueness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his Tefillin, were he to wear them, he would write, Mi Ka'amcha Yisrael Goy Echad Ba'aretz. He would sing the praises of the uniqueness of Klal Yisrael. Says the Marshal there, in the Gemara and Brachas, Ani L'Doidi V'Doidi Li. That is the reciprocal love and praise that Klal Yisrael have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, says the Kliyaka here in the Parshat Ki-Tissa, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving the Mishkan to Moshe Rabbeinu, so he wants to emphasize first the Mishkan, because the Mishkan is the praise of Klal Yisrael, that we are able to build a Mokum L'Shchina. We are able to build for HaKadosh Baruch Hu a place where the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can reside in this world, and that's a tremendous shevach for the Jewish people. And in the end, he mentions, don't forget Shabbos. But Moshe Rabbeinu turns it around. He says, no, let's first talk about Shabbos. Shabbos is a shevach of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kishesh Yomim Osa Hashem Es Hashmayim V'Ha'aretz. That must be a priority for us. We have to first talk about Shabbos. Shabbos is, in a sense, the beginning of everything that we do. It's as I said before, it's the Makor HaBracha for the future of everything that we can do. We can't start building a Mishkan unless it starts with the Kedusha of Shabbos. So here we have, within Parshas Ki-Tissa, a new reference to Shabbos, but with a new nuance to it, that we begin to understand that is in fact why in Ki-Tissa, when Shabbos is referred to, it's referred to in the feminine gender. It's referred to is Ki-Os Hi Beini Uvebere, Machalaleha Mos Yumos is referred to in the feminine, but in Vayakel it's referred to in the masculine. Kala Boy Malacha Yumos, referred to in the masculine, and that is the feminine and masculine, which is of course nothing to do with men and women. It's just a conceptual framework that Chazal use to understand the deeper concepts of Kedusha in general, that there's one aspect which absorbs from the past and the other which generates to the future, and they come together on Shabbos and create the actual Vayinofash, the real Neshama Yesera, which everybody can have on Shabbos, and that is the ultimate bracha for Klal Yisrael, and we should all be zeicha to benefit from that every week.